Good evening. This is Professor Rush once again with the final segment on this series on Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In this segment, I want to consider three issues. That is, first, are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam religions? Second, what is their relevance in the modern world and future survival of the planet? And third, which is connected to the second, why these traditions should be discredited. Before starting this, I want to emphasize I do not care what the individual believes with respect to the supernatural world. You can believe in ghosts and demons and gods and devils. You can even believe in little green men flying around in spaceships, kidnapping people and ruining cornfields with geometric designs. What I'm objecting to is the presentation of the mythic storylines in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam as historical facts. That Abraham and Moses were real people, contacted by a God and given special privileges and landholdings. That Jesus was a real person who died for your sins, was resurrected, and went to heaven with the promise, I'll be back. Or that a person by the name of Mohammed went into a cave and conversed with an angel who recited to him the Quran. These are really absurd positions, out of date, and need to be exposed for what they are. That is, myths wrapped around political objectives. Outside of placing a deity's name on the letterhead, I challenge the rabbis, priests, imams, and religious scholars to point out the religion in these traditions and their relevance in today's world. Instead, these are purely political systems telling people how to dress, who to hang out with, what you can eat, who to pray to, and how and when to pray, how much money you should give to the church, temple, or mosque, who to hate and who to kill. Again, when someone is telling or demanding that you relate to the supernatural according to some constructed system, that is, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, this is no longer religion or your personal belief system. This is politics, pure and simple. To begin then, let me define religion and make a distinction between religion and politics, something the scholars have neglected to do. As I have emphasized many times in this series, the original meaning of religion involved one person's piety toward the supernatural world. It has nothing to do with what you wear, eat, hang out with, who to kill, or who to vote for. Considering the definitions offered in publications and website sources, one rapidly concludes that many aspects of social living could be called religion. Taking this a step further, one encounters the belief that religion is more than a personal construction of the supernatural world, and must involve a social component, including public gatherings, rituals, a hierarchical structure of priests, and so on, which imparts a sense of morality to social living as the system attempts to answer the important questions like, where did the universe come from, what is life, and what is death? The major problem with these definitions is that they were constructed around what we currently call religions, that is, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, Hinduism, and so on, without asking the larger question, and that is, how does one separate a religion from a political system? This is an important question, which the scholars have failed to answer, out of political correctness. According to the definitions offered by well-meaning scholars, you can't separate religion from politics, and thus Nazism fills the bill as a religion, just as readily as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and should be equated the same status as religion with tax privileges, the right to gather, and practice their brand of insanity. Nazism, like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, has its messiah, Hitler, its sacred literature, the Mein Kampf, its sacred symbol, the swastika, religious processions and ritual procedures, anointed priesthood or elite, the SS, sacred hymns, excommunication, that would be the concentration camps, the devil, the Jews, its promised land, and so on. Using these checklist standards, the Ku Klux Klan should likewise be given the status of a religion, as should Scientology. The U.S. government thus has arbitrary standards for determining what qualifies as religion, and when laws are administered in an arbitrary fashion, you end up with a fascist-type political system. It is quite obvious why the politicians won't change the laws. These traditions represent votes. In order for the term religion to be applied in an unambiguous manner, with some sense of meaning, politics must be removed from the equation. And here's how we can do this. And at the same time, remove Judaism, Christianity, and Islam as religious traditions. Belief systems regarding the supernatural evolved over a long period of time, from hunter-gatherers to agriculturists and then city and nation states. The emphasis on the supernatural changed as the circumstances changed, and until this was written down, these changes can be seen as spontaneous. Concepts of morality, which evolve out of social necessity, not religion, remained constant. Morality has been part of social living from the beginning, going back perhaps 1.8 million years. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, on the other side, are conscious constructions designed to control people and not to honor the land, that is, the animals and the crops, or the ancestors. Judaism, for example, begins essentially with the construction of Exodus, sometime shortly after 560 BCE, when the Jews were released from exile in Babylon. Genesis, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and all the rest were added in as the system was purposely developed by the politically motivated priests. Be very cautious of the dates assigned to the first 5 books of the Old Testament. I challenge the scholars on these dates. This must be understood. The writing of Exodus was designed simply as a mythical charter to obtain special privileges and landholdings. This is purely a political statement with Yahweh on the letterhead. The secret words here are construction for political purposes. Now, Christianity is likewise a construction literally put together over a period of about 80 years, again to obtain political legitimacy. Islam was constructed in even a shorter period of time, between 700 and 750 of the current era, using the Old Testament as a template. All three use the supernatural simply as a means of celestial compliance to their political ends, playing on the fears of ignorant, superstitious people. All three added a deity to their construction in order to establish celestial justification for their political activities. Now, just as Nazism has been discredited as a viable political system in a modern world, so should Judaism, Christianity, and Islam be discredited as viable, meaningful, or even useful political system in today's world or the future. All three have promoted hate for non-members, murder for non-believers, and overall social pathology. They all promote bullying, especially of children and women, and public humiliation through shunning and excommunication. In Islam, dropping out of the system is a death sentence. Another aspect of these traditions that indicates they are primarily political systems is stability. Judaism, for example, is only political in Israel. Other than that, it has disintegrated into an identity system, only with some people still believing that they are the chosen few. Oh yes, there are still a few diehards who continue to dress in a certain manner and continue to get the deity's attention at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. The Catholic Church is still a viable political system with a great deal of influence in the political affairs of the world. But when it comes to the Protestant world, those hanging on to a political position are the fundamentalists. The fundamentalists, however, are a very unstable bunch who feel the need to shun and use celestial rejection to keep members in the group. This comes out with their strict rules, or when a husband or wife decides to leave the church, and the church fathers use the courts to help the remaining spouse gain custody of the children and limit their involvement with the dissenting spouse. I have numerous cases on file involving Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, and Seventh-day Adventists. This shows the insecurity of the system, the lack of faith that the church fathers have in the truth of their traditions. Islam, however, is the most insecure, unstable political tradition on the planet. One only has to look at the Middle East today. One only has to consider the death threats against anyone who criticizes their system to understand this fear of disintegration if members openly question this tradition in the light of modern scientific knowledge. I keep hearing that without these traditions there would be no morality. This is one of the most absurd and basically ignorant statements coming from these political traditions, and echoed by many scholars. The terms morality and politics are mutually exclusive. Where is the morality when these systems with world influence divide people and stifle cooperation? Where is the morality when Islam, for example, states that all non-Muslims are devil worshippers and evil? Where is the morality when these systems preach hate toward others? When these systems tell their adherents to kill in the name of God? When these systems use celestial rejection and shunning to punish those who want out and no longer believe in this absurd storyline? Where is the morality when people are killed or tortured because they desire to leave the tradition? When people are killed because they criticize the tradition? When women are given the status of slaves? When people are taught to think that belief in God is more important than being a decent human being? Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are out of date, out of step with a modern, troubled world, and need to be replaced with another system more compatible with our shrinking world. Moreover, these traditions present their brands of the supernatural world as historical fact, which promotes insanity. So, where is the religion? Where is the spirituality? The administrators of these systems, that is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, need to grow up and seek illumination and move away from believing that the moon is made of green cheese. All three traditions preach the idea that a deity lives in the sky and has special people he pays attention to, but only if they enslave themselves to him. The Jews believe they're a special people and no one else is in on this. The Christians believe that the only way to God is by accepting Jesus as your Savior, while the Islamic tradition preaches that martyrdom, through human sacrifice, through homicide bombings, is the supreme pathway to Allah. All three promote the idea of praying for health, wealth, and children. All three promote the idea of asking the deity to pay attention to your animal nature. The recent classical example of this was the churchgoers in Detroit praying that the deity would save the automobile industry. This is quite absurd by any normal standard, and the fact that the priest or minister went along with this indicates mental instability on his or her part. So, how do you discredit these traditions? First, high school history books have to stop promoting these traditions as representing historical fact. Because there is no historical visibility for Abraham, Moses, Jesus, or Muhammad, they need to be presented as mythical characters. High school texts should also list the atrocities committed in the name of the respective gods, and that these are political systems designed to control people. The mass media can be extremely useful in presenting these traditions as out of date and dangerous in a modern world, a world that needs unity and not division. The individual can play his or her part by stop patronizing these traditions, stop going to church, temple, and mosque and paying for the upkeep of these personnel, the priests, the rabbis, the ministers, imams, who obviously are mentally challenged. If there is a God, he or she or it is right inside of you, and you don't need a minister or a church to access that energy. As our mythic hero said, you don't need a church or a priest. You are the temple, you are the priest. If you need more structure for your personal belief system, read chapter 5 in The 12 Gates. Now, when the fundamentalists, that would be the Jehovah's Witnesses or Seventh-day Adventists and Mormons, show up at your door, ask the basic question: what is more important in your tradition, God or humanity? This is a very simple question. Just a few weeks back, a Jehovah's Witness minister came to the door, and I asked the question. His answer was, "It depends." I forced the issue by saying, "This is a simple question. So what is it, God or humanity?" He wouldn't answer. He wouldn't answer the question. I then handed him a copy of Failed God, pointed out that Jesus was holding a mushroom in his hand and that mushrooms surrounded him. He looked puzzled, at which point I said, "Jesus is a mushroom, a hallucinogenic mushroom." I could see that his brain stopped functioning, but finally, when he came to, he refused to take the book as a gift, although he was expecting me to accept a Bible as his gift to me. I asked the gentleman what he thought of Islam, to which he didn't respond. But then I asked if he'd ever read the Quran, to which he replied, no. These traditions were based on the use of powerful, mind-altering substances. Do not argue with these people. Simply ask the question, what is more important, belief in God or being a decent person? If they say belief in God, simply tell them that they're worshiping a demon, and tell him or her that you're not into demon worship. Finally, people have asked me, what about the good these systems do? That is, the building of houses in Mexico and other charity work. My answer to this is simple. The charity work done by these systems comes with a price, that is, conversion to the system. There's no free lunch. Moreover, any money acquired by these systems for charity purposes goes back into the system, and only a small percentage ends up benefiting those in need. These traditions are scammers. Charity begins at home, your neighborhood, and your schools. Hand out food to the homeless people in your community. Walk the streets and pick up garbage. Give money to the schools. Giving to church, temple, or mosque does not help accrue points to get you into heaven. It only benefits the systems. Priests, rabbis, ministers, and imams are some of the most immoral people in the world, as they support lies and deception, and in many cases promote hate and death of innocent people. In the United States, there is a belief in freedom of religion, but where is this freedom if the individual is brainwashed in believing the absurd storylines presented by these traditions at an early age, and threatened with celestial punishment if the beliefs are questioned? Such threats can be categorized as nothing less than emotional abuse. Forcing Judaism, Christianity, and Islam onto people is not freedom of religion, and it is my hope that someone will institute a class action lawsuit designed to uphold the individual's right to choose his or her beliefs in the supernatural, which is surely not the case under the present circumstances. We now have laws against bullying in our schools. Should not this equally apply to the bullying that goes on in the name of religion? So you want to do God's work? Well, here it is. Just be a decent person, which does not require a priest, rabbi, minister, or imam, nor does it require a church, temple, or mosque. By supporting these personnel and the systems they represent, you are promoting social pathology. Until next time.